Welcome back, everybody, to the Ops Desk podcast. We have a lot going on and a lot to discuss today. As ever, I am here with my colleagues. First up, former CO of NYPD, Major Case.
Chris Flanagan.
And, of course, prosecutor extraordinaire,
Eric Seidel.
And we were going to and are still going to talk about Eric Adams today and the legal machinations around his case, which just seem never-ending. But as we were going to air just now, big bombshell drops. Donald Trump announces that America will be taking over the Gaza Strip. And Eric, it takes a lot to shock a guy like you who's been around the block on these issues. You lived over there. You have served over there. I just got to come to you. Give me a reaction.
Total awe, shock and awe.
Yeah.
I never, and look, I kind of pride myself, I read the Israeli press, I listen, friends, etc.
Are you a dual Israeli citizen?
I'm a dual citizen,
Right.
I was in the army there, a lot of ties there. And
I know, yeah.
And I tell you, I am speechless, quite frankly, except to exclaim superlatives and just amazement.
Yeah.
At the fact that the president would express this kind of, describe this kind of a plan. And I am terrible. I'm in admiration.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, it's risky too.
But it's aspirationally,
yeah,
it is fantastic. It is a solution to an intractable problem, which would just repeat itself time after time after time, because they have Hamas and the Palestinians there have an ideology, and it's just unsolvable except for something radical and just going to the root of it all, that Trump's proposal is. I mean, really, he's got a lot of personality flaws in my view, et cetera, but he's a great man. This is a great position, solution.
Yeah, great gesture. It's one of these grand. He realistically, in many ways, is staking his second presidency. I think in the scheme of things that we need to solve, he's looking at the border. I got a handle on that. I got Holman. I got ways to do that. He's got other issues he's got to tackle. None of them are easy. We get that. But this is a high wire act. Chris, I want to come to you because I thought you had a really interesting insight relative to this. I got a text from somebody at Fox who made a point that to Donald Trump, Gaza looks like a construction project. Because remember, he was a builder. And you made a point relative to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my point was that I feel like lately over the last few years in foreign affairs, China's kind of been cleaning their clock. And the reason, in my opinion, is that we're handing out money left and right with no strings attached often. And that doesn't get a lot of respect. It gets a lot of corruption. But what the Chinese do is they partner with a local country or locality, and they build infrastructure. They build a legitimate partnership between the two countries based on economics and the idea that the place will flourish, and it often does. And the United States should learn that lesson. It doesn't seem like they are, but this might be a chance to turn that around.
I think that's one thing real quick I just wanted to mention to Chris's point is that I think the perfect exemplar is Africa, where you're right, they're cleaning our clock, and it's because they take that much more practical approach. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, just to be a little cynical here, if this happens, a lot of construction companies are going to be making a lot of money, which, quite frankly, in my view, is fine.
Who gives a shit? Listen, somebody's going to make the money somewhere.
I'd rather see the construction industry making money than the so-called military-industrial complex.
Hey, listen, just as long as it's not Bin Laden Industries,
right?
All right. Remember, they were Middle Eastern builders. No joke. I mean, you don't want to find out that all the money went to somebody that's terrorist adjacent. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, look, this is a revolutionary, it's an almost biblical solution to a a biblical problem.
All right, let me ask you then, speaking biblically, where are they going to go? You got how many million that you got that are displaced? Give me
You
a number.
got in Gaza, they say there's, I mean, the number that Trump threw out today was about 1.8 million. They
All
say
right.
about 2.2 million
I was
in
going to say
Gaza.
that probably means about 2 million. All right,
Yeah,
that's a lot of people.
that's right. It's a
Where
lot
they
of
going?
people.
Well,
I
you
don't know where they're
rebuild this
going.
place. Where they going to go?
Look, you got the Sinai, where you can, there's a lot of territory there that's empty.
Egypt doesn't want them. Let's be clear. They got
He,
enough problems.
correct. Except what Trump also said today was, yeah, uh, King Abdullah in Jordan
He
and
name
Al
checked him.
Sisi,
Yeah.
they don't want it, but I think they're going to change their minds.
Hmm.
But even getting to, I mean, the movement of 2 million people is a massive undertaking. Again,
Listen,
from one
remember, a lot
side
of
of
them are
the
not there now.
Israel's.
So,
Well,
there's that.
the thing is, during this war now, Israel moved them back and forth,
That's
north and
my point.
south,
That's right.
and
That's
you
right.
can move them. The question is, you got to have a place that's reasonable to move them to,
Yeah.
and you got to make sure that they don't start digging tunnels wherever they are.
No, well, that's the thing you got to guard against. And, why do I get the feeling they're all going to end up in Queens? Chris, let me ask you something. You're a financial investigator. This is going to entail a lot of money. Now, I'm not asking you to set up the entire financing of what may be one of the world's biggest public construction projects, but you know better than anybody on this call, certainly, how money gets siphoned off, moved around, etc. How the hell do you set something up like this to make sure that all of the money doesn't go to Russian fraudsters somehow?
Yeah, that's a difficult undertaking, but I think really what you have to do is just carefully select different projects, keep it isolated, and then ask for a budget, and make sure it gets filled in that budget. And it's going to take a lot of vetting. It's going to take a lot of strong arming. That's the part I really don't see how they're going to do, because you really need to ensure that people on the other side of the world are building what they promised at the price they promised it.
That's a lift, man. I'm going to go back to the closest analogy that I can think of, which is the rebuilding of the World Trade Center. Eric, you remember who got their fingers into the rebuilding of World Trade?
Yeah, yeah, right. We had investigations into, organized crimes and involvement in that.
The
But
Gambino
the
family
body
stole the Gambino family stole the
stole
trucks.
some, right? But you know what? That was a small picture. And the thing is, it got built okay. Uh, they cleaned up the site. I mean, people were
It got done.
obviously,
It got done.
yeah,
Okay, I'll
people
give
were
you that. Yeah.
obviously making
Got
money.
done, but that was a boondoggle. It took forever. I
Yeah,
think really you're going to have to hire construction people that you have some sort of leverage on, and I don't know how they pull that off over there.
I think you got to use Arabs. I mean, they're not going to want the
No,
Israelis dictating how the thing is built. You're going to have Arab
something.
countries step up
I,
here. No,
I
Chris?
don't have as positive a view on it as you do, Eric, because I think you're going to be putting American troops boots on the ground in the Middle East again, and I didn't see anyone representing Palestine up on that stage today. Um, I think they might be amenable to it, but they're certainly not all going to be amenable to it. And it only takes a couple people to start, you know, bombing construction sites, killing construction workers, and things could go sideways very quickly. And
Yeah, I
I
mean,
find it
it could
concerning.
start.
I find it concerning.
It could start to feel like Iraq. Absolutely, where
Yeah,
we're
just
stuck
building.
nation
Yeah,
building, and the people we're building the nation for, they're all getting, the elites are getting rich, and the rest of the people are throwing bombs. Eric, how do you prevent
you know
that?
something. Let me just, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think in a project run by Trump you're going to see the elites getting rich to the complete detriment of the locals there. But it is such a angry community with some reason that I don't see you getting everybody on board, and it only takes a small population to do a world of damage over there.
So,
well,
Eric, how are you going to guard against that?
Well, okay. I mean, once you start thinking about it, there are, more experienced minds than mine to deal with this problem. But to realize it, Gaza Strip is a very self-contained area, and
Yeah.
it's a small area,
And
and
it has a coastline.
it's not Iraq,
Right.
and
It has a coastline, so it has a
number one,
shipping
right?
element.
Number one, there's a tremendous potential. I mean, it's on the coast,
Yeah, yeah, that's my
and
point. Yeah.
it's
It's got a beach.
could be beautiful.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd move out the entire population.
Mm.
I'd put them far enough away. You can um, effectively, maybe not hermetically, but effectively protect the borders because again, it's a very self-contained area. And once you don't have the population there, look, Hamas hid among the population. And
Right.
that's one reason they were able to survive militarily,
Yeah.
because you don't want to inflict civilian casualties, blah blah blah. So you don't carpet bomb, etc. Blah blah. Now here, if you don't have the population there, and you're just looking at the borders, you can probably do a very effective job. Now, in terms of American troops, look, I know what Trump didn't rule it out, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Uh, Israel certainly knows how to protect those borders. Again, maybe not hermetically, but effectively. And if you can get to that point, I mean, you are so far ahead of the game
Yeah.
because what you're looking to do is really prevent Hamas or an ideology like Hamas's from uh, controlling that
From
area
being
coming back.
attractive. What you're
Sure.
really doing is preventing that from looking attractive because if all of a sudden people see what his hotel's going up, my son has a job, he works as a waiter, but he's making more money than I ever did, and my cousin's a chef in the the Hilton or whatever. I'm going to make a prediction. Trump does everything transactionally. And here's my prediction in terms of if it works or what he's thinking. I'm sure they've run the traps on this. He's not that impulsive. He's impulsive. He's not that impulsive. I'm sure he's been gaming this out not only with Netanyahu but Stephen Miller and some others, and maybe even King Abdullah and others, right? Because he did name check them. I don't think he name checked them without at least some contact. I think in terms of transactions, he's thinking of a day. He has a picture in his mind of a day when Gaza looks like Miami Beach, and those are American hotels. What do we get out of it? We get hotels, we get business. That's what he's always thinking. Just like he said to Zelensky, you want American money? That's fine, but now we want the rare earth metals. You think I'm
You know,
wrong?
you know what? I hope you're not.
Yeah.
And that if that's the end goal, if that's the end result, that's fantastic. Look, what you're trying to do, again, from Israel's point of view, is eliminate an existential threat to their existence, which was thrown at the stark reality by what happened on October 7th. October 7th is the picture of what would happen on a mass scale if Hamas won a war.
Right.
I
And of
mean,
course, you got lurking in the background, you got Iranian nukes. So you have all of these issues that are blowing through this thing. And, these are the things that, I think in the shock and hopefulness of a new idea, we have to remain cognizant of. Chris, I want to come to you real quick here now. So you're a little bit more skeptical of this. Do you see no way it could work? Do you see no path forward here where you actually end up having a functioning Gaza state that is independent? And, by the way, I think it's got to go that way. I think you got to decouple it from the West Bank. I think it has to be its own entity. And it somewhat is, I know that, but I think it almost like you got to rename it and come up with this is going to be called XYZ. Chris, no hope?
Yeah, very little. If I hate to say it because I'm rooting for obviously success there, but I think that fighting ideology or the hatred of Israel is so deep seated in that community. Like when you're talking about doing all these things, you're going to have to put an airport there. You're going to have to build a port. There's going to have to be like free trade, and you don't even they wouldn't even need tunnels anymore. You can just bring a shipload of missiles in there if you wanted to. Like it can't
Which is
function.
why they don't have a port now, by the way. That's the one thing Israel's always tried to guard against.
You have to
That
sneak stuff
port.
into the country,
Right.
into Gaza rather. But if you're going to do all this stuff, you're going to need free and open trade, and I don't think you're going to get. I mean, if you got 95% of Gazans or Palestinians on board, the 5% can ruin it, and I don't know that you could accomplish that. I mean, just look at like Northern Ireland. Ireland was given its freedom in the early 20s, and they still fought for almost 100 years to get that little piece back. And if you look at the initial map of Israel from 1948, you're going to guarantee that there's not a small population of Palestinians that aren't going to want at least to go back to that and fight for it. I just don't know that you're going to. I hope that you can get people on board for it, but
All right, let me sum us up just with this then. If nothing else, it is a hopeful move. It is a bold move. It is a move with great guts behind it, for lack of a better term. Chutzpah, let's use the Yiddish term. But I think what he has to do, Donald Trump, just to close us out, is that I think he has to make sure that it is clear that this is not going to be perfect, because I think one of the things we all have to remember is that the international press, the international left, which is pretty much the same thing, hates his guts. They think he's a naive troglodyte. And the chances of this working maybe are not great. But if it does work, it's not going to work perfectly. And the international media will scream bloody murder every time something goes wrong. And what I think Americans have to do to manage their expectations, along with the Israelis and anybody else who wants to see this work, is going to have to accept the fact that there are going to be casualties. And very often they just can't accept that. We should remember something. Iraq does exist. For all its imperfections and for all the grief that W got on Iraq, it does exist. I remember Kissinger talking about, well, maybe I read it because I read a book or two of his, but I remember him saying something like, the most we can hope for is a coherent, cogent, sort of defined nation of Iraq that is at least not knee-jerk opposed to America. It may not be an ally, but at least it's there and it is a force for stability. Now, you could go back and forth on whether it really is a force for stability, but it does exist. And I think that if you lower the bar and say, we at least want a Gaza that exists, however imperfect, and is moving forward, maybe sometime after all of us are long dead, the thing does still exist. Eric, I'm going to come to you for the last word. Any thoughts?
Well, there are going to be a lot of accusations and claims that he's endorsing population transfer. But we shouldn't forget there have been recent population transfers throughout the past 100 years. The Greeks and the Turks, the
all of Eastern Europe
Pakistanis,
after World War II.
yeah, the Pakistanis in India and Bangladesh.
Yeah, Russia.
And
I mean, the Russians are in the Donbass because they transferred Russians there to try to claim that eastern Ukrainian land. The population transfer is as old as the earth. I don't think
Right.
I'd be surprised if that gains a whole lot of purchase here. But hey, look, all I can say is Donald Trump may finally have bitten off more than he can chew. Maybe not. We hope not. But this is a guy who can chew a lot, and there is no questioning his stones. I mean, God help us.
It is a unbelievably bold move, but I still come back to, if I can just get the last word, you're going to have American soldiers likely dying over there, and I think we've had enough of that.
That could well be. All right, gang. We appreciate you coming in for this quick read on this big announcement, a really, really surprising one. And, it's like every day with Donald Trump is history. The guy is amazing. I don't know where he gets all of this energy, but it's something to watch. Once again, we are the Ops Desk. Special thanks, as ever, to Chris Flanagan and Eric Seidel. In the meantime, all of you out there, please stay safe.